This is the highest bridge on Earth. It's in one of the poorest provinces in China. And the drop from the road to the water below is 625 meters. They built it in 3 years and 8 months. And this is just one bridge. Out on the coast, the longest sea crossing in the world. A tunnel dug below so ships sail over the top of the traffic. In Chongqing, a train runs straight through an apartment block. And yes, people live in that building. The high-speed rail is longer than every other country's combined. 16 million people ride it every day. It's the kind of thing that makes you wonder what happened to the rest of us, until you hear about a different Chinese story. One about a bridge that was 8 months old and fell apart. China doesn't build perfectly, far from it. But everything you've been told about Chinese infrastructure, that it's all fake, all cheap, all about to collapse, is half of a lie we tell ourselves to feel better. In this video, I'm going to show you how they put up in months what takes us a decade and what that pace really cost the people building it. My name is Bertrand. I've been doing business in Asia for 26 years. I'm not guessing how things work, I deal with them every week. That's why I created this channel, to share my perspective from the inside. If that's useful to you, subscribe. The bridge from the start of this video is called the Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge. When it opened in September 2025, it took the world record from another Chinese bridge. The Dutch crosses the same river 200 kilometers upstream and had held the title for 9 years. For over a decade, the only country able to challenge China on bridge height has been, guess who? China. Now, look closer at that bridge, because something about it makes no sense. It cost around $280 million. It carries a 2-lane expressway across a canyon in Guizhou, one of China's poorest provinces. The average person living there earns about 40% less than the rest of the country. The traffic it serves will embarrass any country. No bank in Europe or America will have financed it. They built it anyway, in 3 years and 8 months, faster than most Western cities need to approve a bike lane. And the bridge is only one line on the bill. To reach it, the expressway had to get through a wall of mountains. Tunneling through all of them would have taken years. So, the engineers slid several peaks open and ran the road straight through the gap. On some stretches, you drive between 2 vertical rock faces that used to be a single mountain. A drone video of that road went viral last year, and half the comments were convinced the footage came out of a computer. Truth is, somebody looked at one of the poorest corners of China and spent billions connecting it. And that wasn't a one-off decision. It's how the whole country spends. Look at the high-speed rail network. China launched its first bullet train in 2008, the year Beijing hosted the Olympics. Today, the whole network passed 50,000 kilometers, which is about 2/3 of all the high-speed track on the planet. I know, you have no idea of what it represents. But to give you a rough idea of what was done, Japan started building the Shinkansen in 1964. After 60 years, it now operates about 3,000 kilometers of track. China laid almost that much last year alone. And guess what? Most of those new lines run through provinces just like Guizhou, places no private investor will touch. So, who signs the check for all that in a province that poor? Here's the twist. The Communist Party never does. To understand the answer, you need to see what Guizhou looks like on a map. 92% of the province is mountains and cliffs. The locals have a saying, not 3 feet of flat land. For most of its history, that terrain kept Guizhou poor and irrelevant. A farmer could stand on a ridge, see the next village across the gorge, and still need half a day to reach it. Now, if Guizhou were in Europe or America, that would be the end of the story. A poor region with terrible geography stays poor because no investor wants to bury money in it. China runs on a different operating system. Every Chinese province is run by officials whose careers depend on numbers. GDP growth, kilometers of road open, villages connected. Hit the targets and you get promoted, maybe all the way to Beijing. Miss them and your career dies in the mountains with you. So, for a governor in Guizhou, a record-breaking bridge is a giant line on his CV. And there is another part, the one about the money, and he explains almost everything. A Chinese province can't just walk into a bank and borrow billions. So they invented a trick. The local government creates a company, gives it some land, and that company borrows from state banks on the government's behalf. These vehicles exist by the thousands across China, and the banks keep lending, because everyone assumes Beijing will never let them fail. The result is a credit line with no obvious limit attached to politicians who got promoted for spending it. Oh, and I almost forgot. Because the state already owns the land, nobody spent 10 years in court fighting expropriation. The road gets drawn and the bulldozers arrive. Put those three things together and you get Guizhou today. This one poor province has built 32,000 bridges. Engineers literally call it the Museum of World Bridges. And Beijing tolerates the cost because the math is political. Before Huajiang, crossing that canyon took 2 hours on switchback roads carved into the cliffs. Now, it takes 2 minutes. The province stopped being an island, and 40 million people move an hour closer to the rest of the Chinese economy. By the way, they still try to squeeze money out of the record itself. The bridge comes with a glass elevator running up one of its towers, a bungee jump off the deck, and a coffee shop sitting 800 meters above the valley floor. The world's highest bridge has become some sort of theme park. So, that's the machine that builds faster than anything the West has ever seen. Now, let's take a look at what it cost in human lives. It cost workers. 12 of them died in August when a half-built railway bridge collapsed in Shanghai. It cost drivers. In the summer of 2024, more than 100 people died in collapsing roads and bridges, some of them barely a few years old. The same machine that hangs a highway 625 meters in the sky also pours concrete that gives way under the rain. The Chinese have a name for this kind of construction: Tofu-Dreg. In 1998, when the Yangtze River flooded and the dikes that were supposed to protect entire cities crumbled like biscuits, the leader at that time, Zhu Hongzhi, went to inspect one of them. He looked at the concrete and said it was as porous as tofu dregs, the mushy leftover from making tofu. The insult stuck. Today, Tofu-Dreg is what 1.4 million people call a building they don't trust. And the fear is real on the business side too. At Statrys, we handle payments between entrepreneurs and their Chinese suppliers. I've watched clients fly to China just to check a factory building before wiring a 6-figure deposit. That's what Tofu-Dreg did to trust. And the reason the world survived is that China kept feeding it. In 2008, an earthquake hit Sichuan. Government offices stayed up. Thousands of classrooms came down with the students still inside. More than 5,000 children died in schools that crumbled. When parents dug through the rubble, they found rebar thin as wire. The money for proper steel had vanished somewhere between the budget and the construction site, one bribe at a time. Those parents were never given a full investigation. Some were arrested for asking too loudly. That's the ugly secret inside the machine. Every layer takes its cut, the contractor underbids, the inspector looks away, and the official who approve it all gets his ribbon-cutting photo before the paint dries. The opening ceremony makes his career. Whatever happens in year 10 belongs to someone else. But 2008 was also the year the machine started changing. The Sichuan schools became a national scandal, and Beijing understood that collapsing buildings were becoming a political problem. So, China spent the next 15 years bolting sensors onto its infrastructure, tightening codes, and executing a few officials to make the point. Did it fix everything? No, but it changed the odds. And the best proof is the bridge from the intro. The one everybody used as proof that China builds garbage. 30 seconds of footage, replayed everywhere, always with the same caption. See, we told you. Except this story doesn't go where you think. The day before the collapse, inspectors spotted cracks in the road surface and the slope above. The authorities closed the bridge that same afternoon and pulled everyone off. When the mountainside finally gave way and took the bridge with it, the structure was empty. Not a single person died. The official cause was a landslide, and satellite images back that up. That's the problem with judging China through viral clips. The collapse got 100 million views. The evacuation barely got a mention. China has built more concrete and more tunnels in 20 years than the rest of the world combined. If Chinese infrastructure actually matched its reputation on your feed, the country would have stopped functioning years ago. It hasn't. The concrete mostly holds. What's cracking is something you can't see in a drone shot: the money underneath. Remember the company trick from earlier? The one where a province creates a shell company to borrow billions it could never borrow itself? Time to look at what is sitting inside those companies. The IMF puts the debt hidden in these local vehicles at around $9 trillion. That's not China's official national debt. That's on top of it. 9 trillion, roughly the GDP of Germany and Japan combined, buried in thousands of shell companies that exist to build bridges, metros, and industrial parks. And no province went deeper than our friend Guizhou. The province with the record bridges carries debt worth about 3/4 of everything it produces in a year. Some of its cities spend more on interest payments than on schools. One local government made national news for creating a task force whose official slogan translates to "smash the pots and sell the iron." That's a Chinese idiom. It means sell everything that isn't bolted down. The trains tell the same story. The state railway company owes 6.2 trillion yuan, around $860 billion. Out of the entire high-speed network, the biggest on the planet, only a handful of lines actually cover their own cost. Almost all of them on the rich coast. The Beijing-Shanghai line prints money. But deep inland, trains run through stations built for cities that never grew. And since 2010, about 20 of those stations have simply shut down. Brand new ghost stations still before their turns ever filled up. Last year, the operator raised ticket prices on its profitable lines by up to 20%, so the coast now subsidizes the mountains. Time to answer the obvious question. How is any of this still standing? Two reasons. First, almost all of that debt is owed in yuan to Chinese state banks by Chinese state companies. The lender, the borrower, and the referee are the same shareholder. When a province chokes, Beijing quietly swaps its toxic loans for cleaner, cheaper ones, and the game continues. There's no foreign creditor to pull the plug, so the crisis everyone keeps predicting never gets its trigger. Second, Beijing never expected the money back in cash. The return was always meant to come sideways. Like when a factory moves inland because the expressway finally exists. The bet is that the growth pays for the concrete eventually somewhere else in the economy. For 20 years, that bet mostly worked, but the easy wins are gone. The first bridge across a canyon transforms a region. The third one transforms a spreadsheet. China already connects 97% of its big cities to high-speed rail. And every new line now serves somewhere smaller, poorer, emptier than the last. The machine keeps pouring concrete because stopping in will kill jobs, careers, and growth targets. But each new kilometer buys less than the one before. So the honest answer on Chinese infrastructure is the engineering mostly works, but the finances mostly don't. Now zoom out, because this story is bigger than bridges. For 200 years, there's been an unwritten rule about who builds the impossible stuff. The Transcontinental Railroad, the Hoover Dam, the Channel Tunnel, the Shinkansen. Whoever built those things is announcing something to everyone else. We are the ones moving now. The Americans did it, the Japanese did it, and whether we like it or not, this generation's version of that announcement is in China. Meanwhile, look at the West. Germany spent 7 years arguing over a train station in Stuttgart. London's Crossrail took 4 decades from idea to opening. The West didn't forget how to build. The West built systems where everyone can say no and nobody has to say yes. That's the thing about China. The machine has no brakes, but at least it moves. And if you run a business, you're already feeling this without knowing it. The reason so much production stays in China, even though the labor stopped being cheap years ago, comes down to that machine. A box leaves a workshop deep in the mountains and reaches a container ship faster than in any other country. We see it constantly at Statrys with entrepreneurs who source there. The factory quote from another country looks 20% cheaper. And then the savings die on the road between the plant and the port. So, when the next collapse video crosses your feed, and there will be a next one, you'll know what you're looking at. And if you're new here, this channel exists to show you how Asia actually works from the inside. Subscribe if that's the perspective you've been missing. See you in the next video.